All right. Well, welcome so much. Welcome and thank you so much for attending this session of Microsoft 365 collaboration. We're going to go over some of the main collaboration tools that are available within FlankSpeed. And my name is Tamara Bredimus. I'm the Learning Strategist and Adoption Specialist for Planet Technologies, and I've been brought in by Microsoft to help you learn how to use the tools you already have in FlankSpeed. This is my contact information. If you have any questions or concerns about training or the training that's available on the Evolve 365 platform, which I'll show you a little bit before we get started, please feel free to contact me either through email or give me a call. I love working one-on-one with people to plan their next training event, or if you need training that's specific to your group or your team, your organization, we're happy to put that together for you as long as it revolves around FlankSpeed. What are we going to cover today? We're going to cover what to use when. Which one of the main collaboration applications available in FlankSpeed to use to solve which business issues. Then we'll take a deeper dive into OneDrive, Teams, SharePoint Online, and then we'll touch and see how Planner and OneNote integrate with Teams and how you can use these other applications to really create a robust environment in the Teams area to get collaboration going within your group. Before we go further into the presentation, I'm going to go ahead and take us to the FlankSpeed portal. And this is the FlankSpeed Evolve 365 training portal. This is available 24/7. It's filled with thousands of videos that are 1 minute to 3 minutes long on just the feature that you're trying to learn how to use. So you'll notice here we have new to FlankSpeed and already using FlankSpeed. And if you scroll down below those videos, you'll see there's a series of videos set up for each type of user. So if you're new to FlankSpeed, we give you an overview of Teams, SharePoint, and OneDrive. If you've already been using FlankSpeed for a while, we give you some tips and tricks to keep yourself organized within Teams. Then if we look at the navigation at the top of the screen, you can click on training, and that's going to take you to the subject library. These are all the subjects that we currently have available for training. And if we dive into the Office 365, we'll see that there are many topics available. Let's hop on into SharePoint Online and go to the Get Started with SharePoint area. And we'll go ahead and open a video. Notice here's the video. This video is just under a minute long. And if we scroll down, the text or what's being spoken aloud in the video is also available directly below the video. If you are hard of hearing, you can go ahead and click on the ellipse and you can choose to turn captions on. One of the nice things about the Evolve 365 site is you can give feedback directly on a particular video or use the feedback button in the upper right-hand corner of your screen to provide feedback. Now, both those places, the place where you provide feedback for the video or on the site as a whole, come to me and I review the feedback. It's a real live person. It's not just going to a computer and I'm going to respond to you and we're going to work together to resolve the issue. Then we also have the training calendar. As you'll notice, this has the M365 collaboration training that we're going through now. If you click on a particular training and click to view the information, there will be a brief description of what's going to be shared in the presentation and also the link to join the meeting. Scrolling back up to the top, we can also go to learning paths. And these learning paths are a selection of videos that have been put together in order to get you trained up to be able to perform a function. So if I go ahead and search for owner in the public skill tracks, I'll see that I can learn how to be an owner of a Microsoft team. I can enroll in this, I can watch the videos, and I can also do the knowledge checks. Now, if you're just looking for information on a particular feature, go ahead and use the search function located right here at the top of the screen and narrow down your search results by clicking on the subject area that applies to what you're looking for. So here we have schedule a meeting in chat. And this video is 1 minute and 43 seconds long. So this is a longer video. But again, we have the text below the video in case you can't have speakers going in your office. And you can also go to the ellipse and turn on the captions. So that's just a brief tour of the Evolve 365 training portal. Again, it's available 365 days a year, 24/7. And we already have over 975 registered users for the Navy. So this just launched last week. People are really taking to it and viewing and learning the features that have to do with flank speed. So let's dive into the presentation. I will be stopping periodically to see if anybody has a question, comment, or concern. You can go ahead and use the raise the hand feature to indicate that you have a question, comment, or concern, or you can just type it in the chat and I'll be able to read it aloud. Also, we are a small enough group, so if you really have a burning question, just go ahead and come off mute and ask me the question. So let's talk about the 3 main collaboration tools in flank speed. So we have OneDrive, Teams, and SharePoint. Now, OneDrive is for your personal business documents. You're not ready for prime time documents. You can share these documents with a few people, but be aware, this is not the place to store business critical documents or project documents, because if you leave the organization, you get reposted, your email changes, that OneDrive files go away. Now, your manager can request that they are granted ownership of your OneDrive and can get access to the files that they need, but that has to be done within 30 days of you leaving the organization. So again, OneDrive is for one person's stuff, and that's your stuff. Teams is a chat-based application that allows you to chat one-on-one or have conversations with a large group of people, up to 2,500 people per team. Microsoft is working on making that 25,000, but right now we're at 2,500. It also allows you to collaborate on documents. So you can share documents with people who are participating in the chat with you, or share the documents with the entire team. You can co-author the documents in real time. So you'll actually see where others are within the document and the changes that they're making at the time. You can post announcements, conversations. You can get information more quickly by using Teams than you can by email. Let's face it, who needs more email? I'll tell you, I never believed that Teams was going to reduce the amount of email until I started this position and was part of a group that really uses Teams. Teams has cut my email receipt by about 50%. Most of the emails that I receive now are from external users only. All of our internal users use Teams to communicate. So again, Teams is for small to medium-sized groups that need to work together. Be aware, anyone who is a member of the group has edit access to all of the documents that have been shared within that team. Now we move to SharePoint. SharePoint can be for large groups of people, and we can have more control over what level of permissions people have to do work with particular documents. So should they only be able to read documents? Let's say it's a standard operating procedure library where 5 people should be updating the documentation and everybody else should be simply consuming the documentation. We can set that up in SharePoint. We can't do that in Teams. Remember, because everyone who is a member of the team has edit rights. We can do that in SharePoint. SharePoint is a great way to push out information that is ready for prime time that you want to communicate to a larger group. Whereas in Teams, you can have 2,500 people in a team. With SharePoint, you can have up to 2 million. Now, that's not a goal. That is just a limit. So SharePoint can be used to communicate information out, or it can be used as the workhorse for your team so that you can collaborate and automate processes so you don't have to waste your time repeating those business processes. So you can route things for approval and have that automatically handled. You can notify people when new documents are created or a new item is added to a list, and a list is a collection of items that are described in different ways. So if you think of a list as a spreadsheet on steroids, that's what a list is like in SharePoint. So again, OneDrive is for one person, that's you. Teams is for moderate sized groups of people to work together up to 2,500. And it's more of an equal footing where everybody has access to edit the documents that are shared within that team. Then we have SharePoint, where its whole point is to share information with other people. And we can have a fine level of control over permissions and the structure. So let's take a look at some of the components that come with the collaboration toolset. Also,
hey, Tamara?
Yes.
Looks like we got a hand up.
Great. Let's see who it is and find out who has a question.
This is Sean.
Mr. Sean Hartog?
Yeah, Sean. Hold on. Let me get my boom down. Yeah, there it is. Okay. This is Sean Harton, code 985. Could you go back to the previous slide, slide 4?
Absolutely.
You talked about needing to, within 30 days, provide some kind of authorization before you leave a organization for your team site or your OneDrive.
When you're leaving an organization, it will be up to your manager to request that the ownership of that OneDrive be transferred to them if they want to have access to those documents.
Okay. There's probably going to be a number of people, especially contractors, that might just walk away and not inform anyone. So I was wondering, that kind of brought that to mind when you said that. And just second of all, for Teams, if you if you check out a document, if the owner checks out a document, you can lock it so that others can't edit it. But just an FYI.
Yes, but that's only while you have it checked out. Yep.
Right. Then you can just keep it always checked out. All right.
Ooh, that would be mean. That's kind of like hiding it from everybody else.
Well, they can still view it. They just can't edit it.
Right. And they don't see the new edits that you've done.
They see the new edits.
Unless you check it in.
Well, I'll have to go back and look at that. Anyway, yeah, the 30-day thing was very interesting. Thank you.
Yes, and that's why it's really important to drive home to people that the OneDrive is just for personal business documents. It should not be used for business critical documents or project artifact storage. Thank you for asking those questions. Those were great questions, Mr. Hartung. So here we see the things that you get with each of the collaboration tools. Now, one of the tools we haven't talked about yet is the Office 365 group. You also hear this referred to as a Microsoft 365 group, and this is for collaboration within Outlook. It does give you a SharePoint online team site. It gives you a shared mailbox and a shared calendar. So that is also a great way to work together in groups. Teams has that chat function built right in, the meeting and video calls built right in. It also provides you with a calendar, and once you're fully migrated, that calendar is going to sync with your Outlook calendar too. And then when do I use what? First, think about who your audience is. Is it a limited group, like a project or an office? Then it's likely going to be a team. If it's a larger group, a whole unit or a region, it's likely going to be a SharePoint Online site. Again, that OneDrive for Business is for individual business files. Remember, this is a work environment. This is not where you want to be storing your vacation photos. You do have a lot of room in the OneDrive for Business, but again, keep it business focused. And then the Office 365 group, or the Microsoft 365 group as it's also called, provides you with a shared mailbox and a shared calendar that you can use to collaborate on. All right, let's see if there are any questions before let's go through this and then we'll see if we'll have any questions. So in OneDrive, the structure is a folder structure. Again, it's for personal business files, and you control who has access to which documents. Now, if you're going to share a group of documents with the same set of users, I would strongly recommend that you put those documents into a folder and then share the folder with the people who you want access. That would give them access to all the documents that are located within that folder. However, share on a limited basis. If you want to share with a large group of people, or it is a business critical document or a project-based document, then you want to be sharing that either through Teams or through SharePoint. And we're sharing only with people who are within the Navy at this point. With Microsoft Teams, we have a channel and tab structure. So we break a team down into channels or topics, and then within each channel or topic, we can add tabs so that functionality is right at our fingertips. Remember, anyone who is a member of the team has edit rights to all of the documents that have been shared within that team. Now, there is a caveat there. If you create a private channel, then you can invite a subset of those team members into that private channel, and only people who are in that subset and have been invited to that private channel would be able to edit files that have been shared within the private channel. Now, tabs within the channels allow additional integration with other applications like Planner, like OneNote. You can also add tabs to access particular documents or views within SharePoint. And owners can limit what members are able to do. Owners can remove the ability for members to add tabs to the channels and their ability to edit or delete posts. I don't recommend removing the ability to edit or delete posts, as the member is only able to edit or delete their own post and not anyone else's posts. So if somebody makes a mistake, it's nice to have that option that you can go in there and clean that up. Then with SharePoint Online, each SharePoint site is a collection of sites. Now, we want to keep this structure as shallow as possible, so we don't want to create too much of a hierarchy effect. So we'll have a main site up at the top, and we can have subsites below that, but again, we want to keep this to be a really flat structure. Owners control who can view and do what based on permissions. Now, the members group in a SharePoint site have edit access by default. You can go in and change that, and I do that quite frequently. I'll change that edit access to contribute, because the edit access allows the members to actually create and delete lists and libraries. So I'll change that to contribute so that they can create and edit and upload documents, but they cannot delete or create lists and libraries. Now, a library contains files. And one of the nice things about storing files within SharePoint is you no longer have to rely on the name field to contain all of the descriptive information about the file. You can actually add columns to that library, and people can tag the document with additional descriptions, like its status, who's the owner of the document, if it's a briefing, when was the briefing presented? And then a list contains data or rows of information. Think of this as the spreadsheet that you're using to manage a project. We can put that into a list and manage the project through the list. It gives you a lot more functionality. It allows you to save filters and sorts so that people just have one click to go to, and then that filter and sort is applied. And the nice thing about this is we can use pages within SharePoint to provide insights into the document libraries and into the list, creating sort of a one-stop shop for whatever you need to access on that SharePoint site. So before we go into the demo, into the demonstration environment, I'm going to stop and check and see if we have any questions. I don't see any hands raised. I'm checking the chat to see if we have any questions. No questions yet. Again, remember, we are a tight enough group where if you do have a question, just come off mute and interrupt me so we can get your question answered within the context of the presentation. All right. Mr. Hartung, did you have another question, or is your hand?
I did. Could you go back
Okay.
to slide 5? I believe it is.
Sure.
It was about the features between SharePoint and OneDrive, and there was a let's see here.
This one. Yes?
Yes.
Or is it this
Yes. That no, the one after that. Yeah. That yes. Okay. So it was kind of throwing me that the team site didn't have the OneNote notebook, but that's because it's stored in the background information on the team SharePoint site in the background.
In Teams, in Microsoft Teams, you have to add the notebook. Whereas in SharePoint Online, when you generate a new site, a notebook is already in the site for you.
Okay, that's why it's not there. All right.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine then.
Great.
Thank you.
My pleasure. So let's go ahead and go to the demonstration. In order to access the FlankSpeed tools and collaboration items, you're going to want to go to portal.apps.mil. And from there, you're going to land on this Office 365 landing page. Now you'll notice we have the app launcher at the top of the screen. If we go ahead and click on that, it's going to show us all the apps that we have frequented. Also, we can choose all apps, which is going to show us in this column all the apps that we have access to within FlankSpeed. Now, what I'm showing you may differ from your environment. I'm in what's called a GCC high environment, which is one step below the Department of Defense environment. I'm going to go ahead and close that there. Then we have the app launcher, which is the frequently accessed tools. And also here at the bottom, if you click on the stacked squares, you're going to see a list of all of the Office 365 tools that you have available to you. As you hover over them, you're going to get a brief description of what the purpose of these tools is for and how to use them. So again, if we're looking at PowerPoint and we're looking at Word and we're looking at Excel, these are the online web applications. So they're going to have a much lighter tool set in them than the desktop applications. So that is something to be aware of. If you're interested in getting into the settings for your Microsoft 365 area, you can go ahead and click in the cog in the upper right-hand corner. And from here, you can even change the theme. There are quite a few themes to choose from, and you're only changing the theme for yourself. So go ahead and have fun with this if you'd like to. If you want to see what you have a subscription to, go ahead and go to your profile in the upper right-hand corner and click on My Account or Account. And from there, you're going to choose Subscription. Clicking on Subscriptions, we're going to then choose View Subscriptions. And it tells you all the licenses that you have available. And it's also going to show you the documents that you've worked with most recently and what you've done with them. So it'll also tell you the recent documents, the documents that are shared, either shared by you or shared by other people, and the activity that's gone on within the document. You can also mark things as favorites, so they'll always be at your fingertips. And you can choose to search for a particular document here using this type to filter the list. You can also, from this plus, you can create a new document without having to go to your desktop. So clicking on that allows you to work with Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Forms, and in Forms, you can also create a quiz. So that's just a brief overview of what you get when you go to portal.apps.mil. Are there any questions before we move forward? Checking the chat. Yes, I do have Power Toys installed. It makes it a lot easier to draw people's eyes to what you want them to look at. All right, does anyone else have any questions, comments, concerns that they want to bring up at this time before we move forward? All right, moving on. So collaboration for OneDrive for Business. Again, remember, this is for one person and that person is you. It's for business, personal business documents. It's cloud access, but you can also sync your OneDrive to your government furnished piece of equipment or computer so that you can access these documents through the File Explorer. And a lot of people find that a lot easier because they're more familiar with the File Explorer than they are with the online experience. From the File Explorer or from the online experience, you can share documents. Now, this is a much better idea than attaching a document to an email. Because if you attach a document to an email, anybody could forward that document outside of the organization, and that person would then have that information. Where if you grant a particular person access to it, even if the hyperlink to that document gets out, only people who have been shared with would be able to access the document. Does somebody have a question?
Sorry, it was a hot mic.
Oh, no problem. So if you plan to share files individually and with a limited scope or life cycle, so remember, not for project documents, not for business critical documents. Again, we have a folder structure. This is something that everybody is familiar and comfortable with. So OneDrive for Business can be an easier road to adoption than some of the other applications. The person who owns the OneDrive is the one who controls who has access to what and what they can do with that access. So you have two flavors of access that you can grant people. They can have edit rights or they can have view only rights. So you can say, just take a look at this and email me your suggested changes, or you can grant them edit rights and let them make the changes on their own. And then documents within OneDrive. We can create new documents or upload existing ones. We can sync that OneDrive for Business to your government furnished piece of equipment. And you'll notice that picture on the right-hand side there. That's the sync button. That syncs it to your GFE. Now, if you're going through Flow 3 and you're accessing your OneDrive through a personal device, you will not be able to sync your OneDrive with that personal device. Be aware of that. So if you have synced your OneDrive with your GFE, you can then access it through the File Explorer. And once synced, OneDrive Online and OneDrive on your computer will mirror one another. Be aware, if you delete a document from your File Explorer within your OneDrive, you have deleted that document from the cloud. You're not just cleaning up what's on your desktop. You're deleting things from the cloud and they are gone. They go to the recycling bin and you have between 30 and 93 days to pick them up. It depends on what the policy is set for. So you can go to the recycle bin within OneDrive and you can pull those documents back. And we can share the documents with people through OneDrive, through the File Explorer, and also through the application itself. Remember, only share from OneDrive with a couple of people, and if you need to share with more than a few people, store it in SharePoint or in Teams. That's where you want to have it. So let's go ahead and take a look at OneDrive. We'll take a look at where your files are, files that are shared with you. We'll look at the shared icon, and we'll view version settings and how we can change the view. Before we do that, let's check and see if there are any questions. I don't see anything in the chat. I don't see any hands raised. Does anybody have any questions? All right, let's continue then. Hopping into the demo environment. We click on the icon that represents OneDrive. It's a cloud. And that's going to open up our OneDrive on the web. Notice it's showing all of my files. I can go to recent. This shows me the most recent files that I have worked with. I can go to shared, and this is going to give me two options. I can see who I have shared with by going to share by you, and I can see all the documents that I've shared out to other people. And if I go to shared with you, I can see who has shared documents with me. The recycle bin is where documents go if you delete them. So if I go into my files and I choose a document and click delete, it's going to ask you, are you sure you want to delete this? We go ahead and click delete. If we hop into the recycle bin, there's that document. Now, a lot of people will call me and say, I'm missing a document. I can't find it. And my first response is go ahead and look in the recycle bin. And they'll tell me they haven't deleted it, but they must have clicked something accidentally, because when we go to the recycle bin, not only do we see it was deleted by them, we also see the date and time that it was deleted at. So let's go ahead and choose this document. Notice restore becomes available up here at the top, and we can go ahead and click restore. That document then appears right back where it was. Now, if I select a document and go to the ellipse or the more options icon, we can choose to open it in the browser. Again, that's going to be the web application, so it's going to be a lighter editing tool suite. Or in the desktop application, we can get a preview of it before we download it to our government furnished piece of equipment. We can share, and we'll go over sharing in a little bit. Copy the link, manage access, And what I wanted to show you was the version history. So coming over to the version history, you can see that I created this document on December 8th, 2021, and that I made updates to it at 4:48 p.m. Now, let's say somebody else made these updates and they weren't updates that I wanted. I could go ahead and click on this ellipse and click restore. That's going to move this version 1.0. Is going to take a copy of it and make it version 3.0. And that will then be the most recent version of the document. Closing out the version history pane, if you look on the upper right-hand corner, you'll see there's a drop-down and you can change how this list of documents appear. If you use a compact list, that's going to reduce the white space and you're going to get more documents on your page. And if we choose tiles, it's going to give you a little preview of what you're going to see if you go into the document. So it lets you plan ahead a little bit before you take the jump into opening the document. All right, let's check and see if anybody has any questions. I don't see any questions in chat, and I don't see any hands raised. So let's continue forward. So we can share a document from within the application. This is in most of the Microsoft applications. In the upper right-hand corner, you're going to see a share button. And by clicking that share button, you can then choose to invite people to your document. And you can choose whether they can edit or whether they can only view. When we click on the share option, we're going to be given some options on how we want to share the document. We can choose that anybody with the link to the document within my organization can edit the document. If we choose people with existing access, that's just sending them a reminder email with a link to the document so they can easily access it. And if we choose specific people, that's going to ask us to put in the email address of who we want to invite. And then below that, you'll see we can either leave this checkbox checked to allow for editing, or we can deselect the checkbox and it becomes view only. Once we select how we want to share, we click apply, and then we put in the names of the people we want to share with. Now, the way that I like to share is with specific people. I'm then making sure that that URL that allows everybody with the link to edit the document is not spread hither and yon throughout the organization, and I have more control over who has access to my documents. And you can choose at any time to stop or change the sharing of your document. So you can choose to disable that link that went out to everybody so they could have edit rights. You can stop sharing in its entirety with the people who you've shared with, or you can change what they're able to do from clicking the drop down. And that drop down is going to allow you to choose either edit or view only. Before we jump into the demo environment and see how that works, let's see if there are any questions about sharing. Yes, Chris, welcome back.
Thank you. I had a question about when you go to your shared files and you go to shared by you, if there is a document that you shared with someone in a chat and you delete it from that shared by you page, does it disappear from the chat?
If somebody were to click on it in the chat because you've deleted that document, it would no longer be available.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Anyone else have any questions before we move forward with sharing and stopping sharing? Okay, let's move forward. Hopping into the demo environment, I'm going to go ahead and turn this back into a list because I find that easier to work with. And if we go ahead and we choose to share a document, I'm going to choose to stop sharing this Tamara document. Notice it is currently shared. And the way that I can see who it's shared with is I can select the document and then go to the information button in the upper right-hand corner. Clicking on that information button, which isn't working right now. So instead, we'll go to this ellipse and we'll get there through managed access this way. There are many different paths to get to what you're trying to do. So we'll go ahead and go to manage access. Notice I can stop sharing. That's going to stop sharing for everybody. Or I can change the sharing feature for the individual with whom I've shared it. So perhaps I've shared it with Rajan first, but then I decide that I want to change it so that Rajni can only have view rights. So I can change that right here. Also, I have links giving access. So you can specify who can view and we can copy that link. Or we can specify who can edit and we can copy that link and share that out. So again, if you want to stop sharing, you want to go to manage access, which you can get to by clicking usually on the information button located right here. Or if you go to the ellipse next to the document, you can choose manage access directly from there. Now let's choose a document that's currently private. Here we have an Excel spreadsheet. If I go ahead and I select that document, I can share right here from inline with the share item icon. I can also choose to share from the toolbar up at the top. But let's go ahead. I like to do it from inline with the document. Go ahead and click on share. Mine opens up to people you specify can edit. But here we can change it to people in your organization. Mine happens to be Planet Technologies. With the link can edit or just view. If they have just view, you can also choose to block the download by turning that on, and people will be unable to download that document. Again, people with existing access, you're just sending a reminder. I like to use the specific people. Notice it puts a check next to specific people, and once we click apply, let's go ahead and allow editing. Click apply. Now we're going to add in the names of the people that we want to share with. So I'm going to start typing a name and then I am going to select them from the drop down that appears. Again, right here, I can control who can do what. So I can say these people can only view or these people can edit, and write a little message because that's going to go along with the email, which is going to include a link to the document. Please review and provide feedback. Then we go ahead and we send that, and it goes into their inbox. What does that look like? Let's go ahead and go into my Outlook and take a look. So here we'll see checking to see if anyone has shared anything with me. And it doesn't look like, oh, here we go. Julie White shared the U.S. Air Force list. So if I go ahead and I click on this, it tells me what I have access to, and I can click on it to open it, and then I have access to that document. So again, it goes to just the person who you have allowed to have access. And again, if you want to stop sharing that, notice here it says it's shared. If you want that to be private again, go to the ellipse, manage access, and choose stop sharing. It's going to give you a little warning. It's going to delete all the links giving access to this item and remove all people with direct access except for yourself. You are the owner of the document. So I'm going to go ahead and choose stop sharing. All right, does anyone have any questions about sharing and stopping sharing? Checking the chat to see if there are any questions. I don't see any. I don't see any hands raised. Did anyone want to come off mute and ask a question or voice a comment? Okay, let's continue forward. And then syncing files between your desktop and Office 365. So you can sync files from OneDrive, Teams, or SharePoint online. So they're available on your government furnished piece of equipment, even when you're offline. You can add, change, or delete a file or folder in your Office 365 folders, and the file or the folder is added, changed, or deleted to Office 365. Remember, I said if you delete it from your online OneDrive, you're deleting it from your File Explorer. If you delete it from the File Explorer, you're deleting it from the cloud. And the cloud, quite frankly, is just the fancy name for a set of servers that are located somewhere for you guys in the continental United States and are very, very secure. So again, you'll notice that it also has the status, which shows you where the documents are in the syncing process, whether they are online only, available for download, or available offline, or if they are in the process of syncing. So those little arrows that are chasing their tails means you're in the process of syncing. So file can be available only online. That's going to have the little cloud. It can be available on the device, and then when you click on it, it's going to open and download the file to your device. So be aware, if you're going to open a file and you're going to open it in the application, it has to be on your government furnished piece of equipment. If you're using Flow 3 and you're opening it on a personal device, it's going to open in the web application and not download to your desktop. And then you can also mark individual files to always be available, whether you're online or offline, from your government furnished piece of equipment. I'll go ahead and show you what it looks like once it's synced with your File Explorer. So let's go here and go to my File Explorer. And here, you'll notice I have synced my OneDrive. It's my Planet Technologies OneDrive. If I go ahead and expand this, it has the different folders that I have in my OneDrive. Now, a couple of folders that I'd like to point out: Microsoft Teams chat files. You had asked earlier about where those files that are shared in a chat go. They go to this folder right here, Microsoft chat files. If it's a file that's shared within a channel, then it goes to the file storage area for that particular channel, which happens to be SharePoint on the back end of a Microsoft team. If you're making a recording in a meeting, that recording, if that meeting invite has invited individuals, it's going to go into the OneDrive of the person who started the recording. If you've invited the channel to the meeting, then the recording is going to go into that SharePoint backend for that channel's file storage system. So this is what it looks like. And if we go ahead and hop in, you'll notice here we have a document. It gives us the path. And this makes it really easy to attach documents to an email if you want to, say you're sending to somebody external, and just including a sharing link to it would not be helpful. So this is another way to access the documents once you've synced them. In order to sync them, what you do is you make sure that you are not available or that you are not having a document selected. You can just go ahead and click sync. You only want to do this once, and it's going to sync with your government furnished piece of equipment. A little sign pops up that says it's syncing, and that's about the extent of it. It does take a while based on how many documents that you have in your OneDrive or on your desktop to sync. It can take a while for this to happen, and it can even take several days for it to happen, so just be patient. So we already talked about this. We talked about deleting and restoring files. Where do they go? Files and folders. If you delete them in your OneDrive or in SharePoint or in Teams, they're going to go to the recycle bin. And you're going to have about 30 days to pull that document back if you didn't mean to delete it in the first place. So to do that, of course, we first delete the item, then we go to the recycle bin, select the item we want to restore, and click the restore button. So just to confirm that everybody's on the same page, here we are. Select the document, delete the document, go into the recycle bin. There's that document. We want it back. We go ahead and select it and click restore. If we go back to my files, there is that document again. Let's check and see if anyone has any questions before we go on to collaboration within Microsoft Teams. Chris, please go ahead and unmute your microphone and let us know what your question is.
So I like to know what things are called. So when you were looking at the File Explorer screen, like on mine, I have a picture of a cloud and it says OneDrive US Navy flank speed. So I'm going to call that OneDrive. And then under that,
Yes.
I have, it looks like a picture of a building and it says US Navy flank speed. So what is that called?
When you click on it, where do you go? Do you go to the portals.app.mil?
No, that's where I will find things that I have synced to. Like if I'm in Teams and I go to that team and their files and I've synced that, then that's what I see under that.
Okay. So that is taking you to just what you have synced. It's showing you all the documents that you have synced to your computer. I'm not sure, because I don't have a government furnished piece of equipment, if that is your file explorer.
I'm sorry, because on your screen, it looked like you had the picture of the cloud, and then below that you had another one with a picture of a building.
Yes, and that building is SharePoint libraries that I have synced and team libraries that I have synced.
Perfect. Thank you.
My pleasure. Mr. Hartong states, if I had OneDrive for Business file that was shared, and then I move that file to a department's SharePoint page, all those previous shared links would be broken, correct? That is absolutely correct, Sean. That is exactly what happens. Because you have moved it to a new location, it has a new URL, all of those links are broken and you have to reshare that document. Thank you for asking that question. All right, collaboration with Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams is a chat-based application that allows us to do one-on-one chats, chats with small groups, conversations with the whole team, or have meetings. So, and there are two flavors of meetings that you can have in Microsoft Teams. One is a Microsoft Teams meeting, which allows you to have up to 1,000 people. Everybody has access to a microphone as long as they have a microphone on their computer, and they can mute and unmute at their will to go ahead and ask questions or add comments to the conversations. The other flavor of meeting that you have with a Microsoft Teams application is live events. Now, this is more of a broadcast news style of meeting where you're broadcasting information out up to 20,000 people. So this is great for a town hall if your commanding officer or leadership is looking to get feedback or ask questions of their staff. Now, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, it is 20,000 people after all. The attendees do not have microphones. What they do is they ask their questions through a formalized question and answer process where they type in their question, and then the producers or presenters can answer those questions either directly to the person who asked the question, or they can read the question aloud and answer the question aloud in the live event. So what we do is we break down our Microsoft Teams area into separate teams. They can be public, which means anyone in the organization can join, or they can be private, which means you have to invite people or send them a join code, and then people can join the private team. And then within the team, we break it down into channel or topics. So if we had a project-based team, some of the channels within that project-based team might be budget, might be requirements, might be research, so that each area or each topic has its own area for discussion and file storage. Then Teams can also be a real hub of activity by using tabs to add functionality to the channels. So we can add a tab, which will easily allow us access to Planner, which is a task-based application, or to a OneNote that we're sharing with everybody within the team. So everybody can literally be on the same page. And again, the Microsoft Teams, it's set up so that you create a team and then you have a channel within the team. Everybody who is a member of that team has edit rights to all of the files shared within the channel that they've been invited to. Tabs, again, allow additional integration between additional applications, and owners can limit member settings, like the ability for a member to add or remove tabs, or edit or delete their own posts. Again, it provides a collective workspace for you and your team, allows you to create multiple teams, and organize the team so that all communication can be in one place, including meetings, chats, and posts. You can also work together live and in real time on files that are stored in Microsoft Teams. So you can all open the document, as long as you don't check it out, as Sean had pointed out earlier. If you don't check it out, multiple people can be in the same document at the same time editing that document. And what you're going to see is you'll see a little flag of where the person is located and see the changes in real time as they happen. An overview of some of the Teams functionality. We have navigation on the left-hand side and settings. So we can set the status. We can also set the theme and how often we want to be notified. We have one-on-one chats or small group chats. We can have meeting chats, so we can have conversations going on within the meeting. And we can mute, leave, or hide chats. Once we get going in Teams and we have many chats going, we have many conversations going, it's important to realize how you can organize your information within Teams to keep you on task. Also, there's the channel structure, and within the channels, we can post announcements and replies, and we can share files in real time. Then, of course, we have the meetings, so we can create a meeting in the calendar view, and once you're fully migrated, that will sync to your Outlook calendar. Documents in Microsoft Teams You want to navigate to the team where the file is related and then go into the channel that has the topic that's related to that document and click on the Files tab. Documents in Microsoft Teams are stored on a special SharePoint site. Each team has a separate SharePoint site for document storage. If you create a private channel, and a private channel allows you to invite a subset of that team, a separate SharePoint environment is created and associated with that private channel. So only people who have access to the private channel have access to those files. You can work on the documents within the application. Remember, everybody who is a member has edit rights. If a document is very important and you want to make sure it's at everybody's fingertips, you can add the document as a tab by going to the channel where you want to add the tab, clicking the plus sign, and picking the document that you want to have added as a tab. Again, it allows for files and collaboration, open and real-time collaboration. Files are organized by channel, and we can sync each channel, or we can sync all the documents that are related to a team. So you just, what Chris pointed out, I've got my OneDrive, and then I have the little building icon. If I'm syncing channel documents or I'm syncing the whole team, that's going to show up in the planet or in the building icon, not in the cloud icon, which is your OneDrive. Before we go into the demo for Microsoft Teams, does anybody have any questions? Checking the chat to see if there are any questions. I don't see any hands raised. Does anybody have any questions they want to just come off mute and ask? All right, let's continue forward and dive into what Teams actually looks like. So we'll hop on over to the demo environment. I'll go back to the portal.apps.mil landing page, and I'm going to go ahead and click on Teams in my Apps Launcher bar. Teams opens. It takes a little while to resolve. Here we go. And I'm going to dismiss this helpful little hint. Notice it's opened up to my Teams. It can open up to Teams, activity, chat, your calendar, files. So here we have the ability to navigate between the different pieces of functionality within Microsoft Teams over here on the purple rail. And if we go to the Files tab, if we're talking about documents, we go to the Files tab, we can get directly to our OneDrive from here. All of our recent documents that we've worked with right here, and it tells you where they are located. And also I can hop on into Microsoft Teams and see all the documents that are shared with me within Microsoft Teams. And it tells you where those documents are stored. If I go to OneDrive, this looks exactly like the OneDrive setup that I had in the cloud or in my File Explorer. So here we have access to all that information just by going to the Files icon in this purple rail. Let's go back to the Teams icon, which opens up the Teams pane. Now I can click the chevron to the left of these teams, and that will shrink everything up. Right now it's showing all of the channels, so I'm going to go ahead and shrink those up. If I do want to get to a channel, I can go ahead and expand it. And clicking on the topic, I can get to a channel. Now, if I want to get to the files that are associated with this channel, I go to the Files tab for that channel, and we'll be able to see all of the documents that are associated with it. Also notice we have some folders within this channel to organize our information. Notice this sync button. This sync button is only going to sync the files that are associated with this channel. If I wanted to sync all of the documents associated with the IT department leads, what I would do is I would choose Open in SharePoint, give it a minute, back up through the breadcrumb and go to Documents. These are all the channels that I have within the IT department leads. IT department leads. And what I can do here is I can sync this entire library with my File Explorer. This would show up under the building icon on my government furnished piece of equipment. So I'd be able to get to all of the documents. If you want to do a one-on-one chat, you simply go to the chat icon located in the purple rail, and you can go ahead and you can start having a conversation with somebody. If I want to start a conversation, a new conversation, I go ahead and click on the new chat icon. I go ahead and enter their name, and I can start with messages. Now, what you don't want to do is that. That's just throwing it over the fence. They're going to come back. They're not going to know what you have going on. They're not going to know whether or not they're going to have time to address your issue. So instead of just saying hello, we call this no hello. Don't just say hello. Say hello, and then type what your question actually is. And then send that so they can come back with a reply. Now, most of the time, if you're communicating with people through chat, you're going to get a much quicker response than if you just threw it into their email and they have to go through all of those emails to see what's important before they're even able to respond to you. Now, let's say Tanya and I are working on a project together. We're going to be working together quite often. I'm going to go to the ellipse or the more actions or more options icon, and I'm going to choose pin. This is going to pin the conversation to the top of the chat pane. If Tanya is going to be who I'm talking with most frequently, I'm going to just click on that conversation on that chat and drag it to the top of the chat window. This allows me to have the chats that I'm most frequently going to access right at my fingertips. Let's say that Rajni and I are no longer working on a project together. I want to clean this up. I click on the ellipse and I choose unpin. And that cleans that up. Let's see if anybody has any questions. Checking the chat, I don't see any. I don't see any hands raised. Did anybody have any questions that they wanted to ask? Any comments or concerns? Okay, let's move forward. Then we talk about SharePoint Online. Now, SharePoint Online, again, can be used for large groups up to 2 million people, or small groups that want to work together and want to use the robust organizational features that SharePoint has. Also, you can automate business processes. You can also do that in Teams by using what's called Power Automate and creating a flow. That's a tool that we don't have time to go over today. We could spend a whole day just going over Power Automate. And SharePoint Online team site, not to be confused with a Microsoft team, but there are two flavors of SharePoint that you get with SharePoint Online. You can either have a team site, which is the workhorse site, the site that you go to collaborate on something, to make something happen, or you can create a communications site. And this communication site is meant to push out information that is ready for prime time to a large number of people. Also with SharePoint Online, we have a much finer control over who can do what with what pieces of information. And you want to spread ownership across at least 2 people for a SharePoint online site. Also with a team, a Microsoft team, you want to have at least 2 owners. That way, if somebody's out on vacation, you still have somebody who can manage that environment. SharePoint Online is a great place to store business critical documents and also documents that are related to particular projects or areas of research where maybe you want to have it locked down so only a small group can edit those documents, but a large group can read them. So again, it gives us a much finer control on permissions and allows us to automate some business processes. Also, once you get to the site, go ahead and click the star in the upper right-hand corner. That's going to allow you to follow the site, and it'll appear on your SharePoint landing page and make it much easier to get to. Now, SharePoint Online is a combination of lists and libraries. The libraries contain files. The lists contain rows of data. Think of it like a spreadsheet. And then the pages can be used to combine the lists and libraries together on a single page so people don't have to hop around to multiple locations to get the information they need to get their job done. So you can create using pages sort of a dashboard or a one-stop shop. Again, we have a much finer level control over who can do what with which items. Working in SharePoint, if you're in the visitors group, you have the permission level to actually visit the site, read news, view events, view files, and fill out forms. If you're in the members group, you can create and upload and change files. You also, unfortunately, I think it's unfortunate, get the right to create document libraries and lists and delete those document libraries and lists, which is why if I'm working on a SharePoint site, I generally go in and change that permission level for the members group from edit to contribute. Do not do this in Teams. You will break Teams. It's okay to do in SharePoint, but not in the back end of a Teams file storage environment, which is also SharePoint. So just make sure that you don't mess with the permission levels for a Microsoft Teams SharePoint site that is the back end file storage. And then if you look over here on the right-hand side, you'll see the list of permissions that you get. So the site owner has more permissions than a member who has edit permissions by default. The site owner has all of these permission levels plus the ability to grant permissions. The site collection administrator is the owner of the collection of sites which make up your individual SharePoint environments. Now, we want to make sure that we keep this file structure very flat and that we have very few subsites because it's going to make it easier to find our information. Remember, the site collection administrator, you want that to be a very trusted person in this role because they will have access to everything in that SharePoint site collection. So just be aware that is a very, very powerful role. Documents within SharePoint. They're stored in document libraries. And one of the nice things about storing them in the document library is instead of trying to cram all the descriptive information about the document into the name of the document, like brochure, Vegas Trade Show 2021, version 6, which is all we had when we were doing the shared drive. That's all we had to describe it. We also had the name of the folder that it was contained in to help describe the document, but usually we tried to cram all the description in the name of the document. Well, in a document library, we can add additional columns that are going to allow us to describe that document in more ways. Like, what's the status of the document? Is it in progress? Is it final? Is it approved? Who owns the document? We can have a column for ownership. And then we can assign ownership to individuals. And we're able to group those documents by those values. So it makes it a lot easier to store and share information. You can also sync that SharePoint library to your government furnished piece of equipment. You can also set alerts for both libraries and individual documents. So if something changes about a document, you can receive an email. Maybe there's a briefing that you're working on and you want to be notified every time somebody makes an update to the briefing because it's getting close to the time you have to present it. You can set up an alert so you don't have to just go back and keep checking to see who's made their updates. You're going to actually get an email in your inbox that tells you who made the updates. And again, the permission levels. The first thing we do is we create a group. We put people in the group, and then we grant a permission level to that group. So again, visitors have a very limited range of things that they are able to work on. Members have a lot more permissions. They have everything that's in the read area, plus they can view, add, update, and delete items, add, edit, and delete lists and libraries, delete previous versions, edit personal user information, manage personal views, and add, update, and remove personal web parts. Now, the owner has full control, which is everything that's listed on this page, plus the ability to manage SharePoint permissions. Does anybody have any questions before we hop into the demo environment to get a look at the SharePoint environment? Checking the chat. Make a OneNote folder for the project and use it to collaborate. That is something that you can do. Let's see here, checking the comments. Yep, Mr. Schaefer, you can spend at least a week or so on Power Automate. And then the next time you open Power Automate and you try and do something different, that's another week on trying to figure that out. Once you get well versed in it, though, it goes a lot faster. Actually, I did what your status message says today with an Excel file. My division head wanted his branch heads to fill in a few cells each. We already have a division meeting and we need to learn to use it. Great way to get people using the tools. It's a one-time file. Great. Does anybody else have any questions before we move on to SharePoint? Go ahead and unmute your microphone and just give me a shout out.
Could you repeat when you were saying about changing permissions in the SharePoint backend, messing up teams, breaking teams again real quick?
Sure. The only way that we want to manage permissions in a Microsoft Teams environment is through the Teams interface and not through the SharePoint interface. Because if you mess with the back-end permissions of how the files are stored, you can actually mess up the functionality of Microsoft Teams. So if it's a SharePoint back-end for a Microsoft Teams environment, manage the permissions through the Teams environment. If it's a standalone SharePoint site, go ahead and manage the permissions through SharePoint, and that will keep you from making any mistakes. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
My pleasure. Does anyone else have any additional questions, comments, or concerns that they want to bring up? Okay, let's go ahead and hop on into the demo environment and take a look at SharePoint. So here we are in the demo environment. I'm going back to portal.apps.mil and clicking on SharePoint. That's going to take me to the SharePoint landing page. Notice it shows me the sites that I am following. Also, if I wanted to find a site, I could go ahead and use search. So I'm looking for a communication site. And I'm going to click on this one right here. Notice that the navigation goes across the top. That's how we can tell it's a communication site. Also, it's very visually appealing. It has a lot of pictures on it. It has information that is grouped together. It's very clean, and it surfaces the information that you want to share with a large group of people. If we go back to the SharePoint landing page and we get out of search, I'm going to go to the Tamara test site. Now, this is a team site. This is that workhorse site template that we talked about in a standalone SharePoint site. Notice that the navigation goes along the left-hand side of the panel. This page is the home page, but it doesn't have to be. We can create our own page and then designate it as the home page by going into the site contents. How do we get to site contents? We go to the cog in the upper right-hand corner of our screen, and from there we choose site contents. And to get to where all the pages are stored, we go into site pages. That's a document library that's specifically created to house pages for your SharePoint site. From the new drop-down, we can create a new list. And if we go ahead and click on that, you'll see some templates that are available for you. If we go ahead and click on a template, you do get a preview of what's going to be included in that list. Now, this is just a jumping off point. This is not the one and be done sort of situation, because you can go in here and you can delete any of these columns that you want, and you can add columns that you need. So you can really start off with a template and then customize it to meet your needs. If a template doesn't come close to fitting what you need, go ahead and click list and choose blank list. And then you can start creating it from scratch. You can also choose from an existing list. Let's say you already have a project's issues list that you'd like to use here. You can choose from an existing list and surf out to that information and grab that list template. The document library, we can create that from the new drop-down right here, document library. That is meant to store documents. Now, like what I talked about before, notice we not only have the name of the document, but we have some additional columns that allow us to describe the document a lot more than we're able to by just cramming everything into the name of the document. So we have in progress, not started, completed. We have the due date. Who do we go to for questions? Because these are the owners. So, and we can also choose this edit in grid view. And what that does is it turns this into kind of a spreadsheet, so that, let's say this document is now completed. I can go ahead and click into this square and I can choose completed. Once I'm done, I want to go ahead and exit grid view. Don't do what I do and just click on the next link you want to go to. Because if you don't choose exit grid view, your changes are not saved. So go ahead and choose exit grid view and notice that our changes are saved. Now, remember I said that if you have these additional columns, you can filter, group, and sort by these columns, not just the name. So if you come over here to the far right-hand side, you'll see this all documents drop down. Now, it also has a view called owned by me. If I click on that, it's only going to show me the documents where I input in the owners field. So what it does is it looks up who's currently signed into SharePoint and filters that owner value by who is signed in. But we can always get back to all of the documents by clicking on this list dropdown and going to all documents. We can also create a new document from here by clicking the new dropdown and choosing Word, Excel, PowerPoint. You can also add additional templates. Let's say you have a briefing template that you want to use for all your briefings. You can add a new template, and then that briefing template will be available in this dropdown for other people to use. So it's very handy. Now, a list, let's see, do I have a list here? I not have a list here. Let's go ahead and create a list. So I'm going to go back to the Home tab. And from the new dropdown, I'm going to choose List. And choose an issue tracker. I'm going to choose Use the template. We're going to call it Issue Tracker, and we're going to have it show up in the site navigation over here on the left-hand side. Go ahead and click Create. And now if I click New, it's going to open a form and I can fill in the value. So what's the issue? My monitor is not working. Issue description. It is dark and blank. What's the priority? Well, I can't get anything done. So for me, it's critical. The status of this issue is new. It's not assigned to anybody right now. The date is reported is today. Look at that. It's a date field. It gives us a little calendar pop-up. I don't have an issue source URL. I don't have any images that I want. And who logged the issue? It was me. Now, SharePoint will actually grab this information for you automatically. You don't need to have a field for that. So if we go ahead and click Save, that information automatically shows up in the list. Now, if I choose Edit in Grid View, I can click Add New Item, and I can put in the new item simply by tabbing through all of the information. A high priority, it's new. And I'm going to assign this to me and put the date reported as yesterday. And then we're going to exit Grid View and save our changes. Now you see the information. And here, this is a calculated column. It's calculating how many days old is this ticket. If we come to the View dropdown, just like we did in the document library, we can see issues grouped by the person it's assigned to, grouped by priority, or grouped by status. So we go to group by status, we see this little chevron, we can shrink it up, and we can see all we have are new items. By clicking on the chevron, it expands and it shows us all the items in a spreadsheet view. Speaking of spreadsheet view, if you need to provide this information to somebody who doesn't have access to this site or doesn't want to come to the site, you can come to the export and choose to export to Excel or to a CSV. Let's check out permissions real quick. We can do that by going to the cog in the upper right-hand corner. Clicking on that, we can choose Site Permissions, and it will tell us who has access from what group. You can also, if you're the owner, you can change how people are sharing information. So only site owners can share files and folders and the site, or you can open it up so that anyone, the site owners or anyone in the members group, can share files, folders, and the site. Quite frankly, I like to keep it locked down so that I'm managing permissions. To me, that's one of the main points of SharePoint. So I don't like everything getting all around. That's a very brief overview of SharePoint. SharePoint is a very deep application. It takes years to learn for creating things. It takes about an hour to learn how to use it as an everyday user who's not creating lists, libraries, or pages, but is creating documents, storing documents, and tagging them with different descriptions. Let's see if there are any questions before we move on. Checking the chat. Mr. Knudsen, thank you so much for putting that into the chat. That's beautiful.
You're welcome. Thought you might appreciate it.
Yep. I love that. It's like, don't cross the streams, but then you say that and people don't understand it because they're too young and they haven't seen Ghostbusters. but it is pretty much that same feeling. All right. If nobody has any additional questions, comments, or concerns, let's go ahead and move forward. We're almost there, folks. So Planner Online, it is a task-based application, and we can access this through Teams. It can also be a standalone application, but it's better if you have a team and you have a planner that's associated with the work that the team is doing. You can make it a tab in one of the channels, so it's at the people's fingertips who are members of that team. It provides one place to see progress of the project. It allows you to share documents, track comments, and includes a calendar view. They call it a schedule view, but it's really viewing it on a calendar. It is a little bit more robust than a out-of-the-box SharePoint task list, but remember, you can customize that task list to be anything that you want by adding or deleting columns. One of the things that you should be aware of is with Planner, there's an issue right now in the Department of Defense environment, which is FlankSpeed, that when you assign somebody to a task in Planner, they do not receive an email notifying them that they have been assigned a task. So Microsoft is working to fix that. It's been a while, and I don't see anything on the roadmap for getting that fixed, but they are aware of the issue. Then we talked a little bit about OneNote. OneNote is an electronic notebook, like back when you were in college and you had that 3-subject spiral-bound notebook. So a OneNote notebook is broken down into individual notebooks, and within each notebook, you can have multiple sections. And within those sections, you're going to have multiple pages. Now, one of the nice things is that you can sync this OneNote across all devices when you're connected to the cloud. And the OneNote can include hyperlinks, images, video, and embedded files. You can also create your own templates or use pre-built templates. And what I love about it more than I love my paper notebook, and I love my paper notebook, is that search makes it invaluable. You don't have to remember where you put something. You can simply search for it. So that makes my life a lot easier. So let's take a look at how we can pull Planner and Teams, or Planner and OneNote, into our Teams environment. Before we do that, let's check and see if there are any questions. Checking to see if anyone has their hands raised. I don't see any hands raised. Checking the chat. I don't see any questions in the chat. I'll give you guys a second to go ahead and unmute if you have a question. All right, let's move forward. So we'll go ahead and hop into the demo environment, and we'll go back to Teams. We'll go to the Teams icon on the purple rail here, and we'll choose a team where we want to add a planner. So we'll go to the General tab here, and let's go ahead and add a planner. To do that, we navigate to the channel, and then at the top of the channel, there is a plus. Go ahead and click that plus sign and choose Planner. Once you've chosen Planner, you can choose to create a new planner by giving it a new name, or you can look at existing plans on this site. There are no other existing plans within the team. So let's use create a new plan. Let's call this DMA tasks and click save. It's going to post a notice in the channel that a new planner has been added, and now planner has been added. To add a new task, guess what you do? You're absolutely right. Click on add task. It gives you a small entry box where you can put in the name of the task, set the due date, and assign the task to somebody. Now, to assign the task to somebody, they have to be a member of the team. So I'll assign the task to Julie. Now remember, in this environment, in the Department of Defense environment, Julie is not going to receive an email notification that she has been assigned a task. So we go ahead and click Add Task, and now that task is available. Click on the task once, and it opens up into a larger pane. Here we can choose what bucket it goes into. We can create new buckets, so you can have kind of a Kanban board going across here. The progress, you have 3 choices: not started, in progress, or completed. You can set the priority of the task, set the start date. We've already set the due date. Add any notes that might be helpful. And this is one of the things I really like, is here is a checklist. So we can say create agenda and gather attendees and secure room. So this way we have a checklist, and here, look at this. We can show it on the card. See how it's showing up here? So we've gone ahead and we've added those, and they're showing up on the card, the whole checklist. And you'll be able to see whether or not they have been marked as completed. So on the big interface, it crosses it off, and on the small interface, it just removes it from the card. You can also add documents. Now, if you go ahead and you add a comment and you hit send, that's going to everybody who has access to this. So although you don't get a notification that you've been assigned a task, you can swap people with comments on what the status is of that particular task. So just be careful how you use that. I'm going to go ahead and hit send, click off of that, and then we can create a new bucket. So here we have to do. I'm going to create a bucket called roadblocks. And I'm going to create a new bucket called issues and a new bucket called completed. So these buckets can be anything that you want. And if you want to, you can simply grab the task item and move it to a different bucket. Now, if we open this, notice that the bucket dropdown changed, and now it has all the buckets that we currently have listed at the top. We can also choose to group by various items, so we can see all of them that are assigned to different people. We can see the progress. We can see them by due date, but a lot of people like this schedule feature, which is going to show it in a calendar format. So here we have the duration of the task, and we can click into it right from here and get the information that we need. So that's how you add Planner to a team. Now, how do I add a OneNote? Very similar. We go to the plus at the top of the channel where we want to add the OneNote, and we choose the OneNote application. Now we can choose to create a new notebook, or we can choose any of the notebooks that have already been created. So I'm going to choose a new notebook, and we're going to call it Budget. And we're going to click Save. Now this OneNote notebook is going to be shared with everybody who has Teams access. And if we click right here, you'll notice we have an untitled section. And what we can do is we can choose to right click on it and choose rename section. So why don't we make this Q1 budget? And let's create a new section. And call it Q2 budget. And then we can create additional pages. So here we have an untitled page. As soon as we give it a page, it'll show up in the title field. So here we have, let's say, estimated budget. And here we can choose to insert different things like a table, and we can put information in here. And then we have the tools available to work with the table. If we go back to insert, we can also insert a file, a picture, a hyperlink. We can even put in an audio recording if your computer has speakers, or I'm sorry, a microphone. And you can also choose to draw. Now, unfortunately, in the Department of Defense environment, we don't have a whiteboard application that we can use, but we can use OneNote, and we can choose to draw in OneNote. I'm not a very good drawer with my mouse, so that's why I'm in IT. So we can choose to change the color of the pen, and people can work together in real time to collaborate on what's going on in, say, a meeting. So one of the issues that we have with these virtual meetings is we don't have a whiteboard. Well, if you use OneNote and you go to the Draw tab, you can actually have a whiteboard. Now remember, everybody who is a member of this team has access to this OneNote, so be aware of that. And they have the rights to edit the OneNote. All right, does anyone have any questions? Let's go ahead and check. I'm not seeing anything in comments. I'm not seeing anyone with hands raised. Did anyone want to come off of mute and ask a question, make a comment, or voice a concern? All right. Well, what we have covered today is quite a bit. We covered Office 365 collaboration, also known as Microsoft 365 collaboration or Flink Speed collaboration. We went over when to use what. And also, if you have questions about when to use what, please, please do not be afraid to contact me. I love working with people one-on-one. I'll ask you a couple questions. We'll get you going in the right direction. We also covered just very briefly an overview of the OneDrive interface and what we can do with OneDrive, like sharing files. And remember, OneDrive is for, that's right, one person, and that person is you. Teams is for a moderate group of people, up to 2,500 people, who want to have shared conversations and shared documents to work together to come to a conclusion about something. Where SharePoint Online is a place where we can share with up to 2 million people, and we have a much finer control over the permissions of who has access to do what. So if you do have any questions, feel free to give me a call or drop me an email. Check out the Flink Speed Evolve Training 365 training portal. And Flink Speed Hub has been revamped. Go and check that out. It's new and it's wonderful. They've actually reorganized all the information, so it's really easy to get to just the information that you need. Now let's see, does anyone have any questions before we go ahead and conclude the webinar?